power of an idea lit that first electric bulb in Tom Edison's lab. That idea, and another one, keep all the lights burning in Vidalia, Louisiana, every night. At Vidalia, 200 miles north of New Orleans, they make their own electricity, 20 times more than they can use. They make it here, at the Sidney A.Murray hydroelectric power station on the Mississippi River. The largest prefabricated power plant in the world, housing the first water power generator in Louisiana. To build a precedent-setting $500 million power plant for a town of 6,500 people in a state considered too flat for hydroelectric power takes many ideas from many people. But it all started with just one.
I was born in Vidalia and born on the river. I learned to swim in the river. And, you know, as a boy, you would go and you could feel the force of the current in the river. And I always had the idea that there was a force there that could be harnessed to generate electric power. During the 1970s, when the high energy rates were in existence, I became very interested in trying to find a way to generate power. I looked at coal, I looked at gas, but I kept coming back and looking at the river. I kept thinking about the river and what I felt was there.
Those thoughts clicked into focus one morning when Mayor Murray was on an Army Corps of Engineers boat, passing through the locks of the old river control structure separating the Mississippi and Atchafalaya rivers. What Sidney Murray noticed that morning in 1976 was something that exists nowhere else along the mainstream of the Mississippi. The old river control structure sits astride the point at which the river has begun to change course, something it does every few thousand years, seeking a shorter, steeper path to the Gulf of Mexico. This time the river was diverting more and more of its water down the smaller Atchafalaya River, which nourishes the swamps and bayous of Louisiana's Cajun country. By the late 1940s, 1/3 of the Mississippi's flow was being drawn down the Atchafalaya. If the process continued unchecked, the river would change course completely within 50 years, with catastrophic consequences along its present course.
Insofar as the cities below Baton Rouge are concerned, and the entire industrial complex below Baton Rouge is concerned, the effective capture of the Mississippi by the Atchafalaya would be absolutely catastrophic. First of all, the fresh water, which nourishes the area below Baton Rouge, would be lost as the water would diverted to the Atchafalaya River. That would result in the entire river below Baton Rouge becoming a saltwater estuary, and the water supply for the area would then be lost. Perhaps most importantly, the route for commerce from the heartland of mid-America to reach the ports of New Orleans and Baton Rouge would be severed. And in general, the total effect on the entire area, including the region, would be catastrophic.
So Congress authorized the Corps of Engineers to undertake one of the greatest projects in the history of civil engineering, a $500 million complex of dams and navigation locks that freezes the relationship between the two rivers where it was in 1950, with 30% of its flow diverted into the Atchafalaya River.
The differentials at Old River Control are quite a bit smaller on the average than they would be at your normal hydroelectric generating station. At such stations, generally, the differentials are measured in tens or even hundreds of feet, rather than feet as they are at Old River Control.
But was that difference great enough to provide the force needed to power the turbines of a hydroelectric plant?
Flight 147, you're cleared for takeoff.
Mayor Murray took that question to a friend, civil engineer Brad Lancaster. Lancaster agreed that there was an adequate flow between the two rivers to power a low-head generator. Thus began a project that would demonstrate how right Thomas Edison was when he said genius was 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. The first step in that process was convincing everyone from the Vidalia Board of Aldermen to the Corps of Engineers and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission that the plan was feasible. Mayor Murray's idea, like most grand visions, was initially received with something less than enthusiasm.
I gotta tell you, I had to stiffen the coffee up just to get up nerve to tell the board what I was thinking about. And you know, gee, all of a sudden, as this thing progressed along, I found out that I was involved in the biggest selling job that I could ever conceive of trying to do in my lifetime. I gotta think also that had I seen it back then, the size and scope of this entire project, the whole dimension of it, I might not have tried to do it.
But Murray ultimately prevailed, and in time the project won not only local support, but substantial backing from Louisiana's political leadership, state and federal. But political support was only the tip of the iceberg. There were many more people to convince.
This was a very long, drawn-out, detailed process. Reviewed by over 25 agencies, both state and federal, that it took to each one to sign off and approve. Critical in this process were reviews by the U.S. Corps of Engineers, I would say, and the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, which is the licensing agency. And even though the review process was virtually without opposition, things went well. You're looking at almost 6 years in time that it took to complete this phase of the project.
In January 1982, more than 5 years after Murray had his idea, the Federal Energy Regulatory Commission granted a license for construction of a 192-megawatt hydroelectric generating plant on this site, just north of the old river control structure. Now came the problem of raising the $500 million it'd take to build the plant, an idea that the little community of Vidalia overwhelmingly supported at the polls. That search for financing ultimately brought Murray and Lancaster to the New York City offices of Catalyst Energy Corporation. Catalyst develops and operates alternative generating facilities, selling power to industrial, commercial, and residential customers and public utilities in 20 states. But Vidalia was still a bold move, considering what a major part of the company's holdings it would become.
Well, Catalyst is broken up really into 3 separate areas. The number one is, of course, the Vidalia project, which represents 1/3 of the assets of the company. The number 2 would be our thermal company, United Thermal, that has the steam systems in Cleveland, Baltimore, Boston, Philadelphia, St. Louis, and Youngstown, Ohio. And then we have our coal-fired baseload plant in Arizona that serves San Diego, the city of San Diego. So the Vidalia represents about 1/3 of the overall assets, which are pretty close to $1 billion in Catalyst Energy.
Project financing was a long struggle, culminated by the creation of a limited partnership with Catalyst Energy Corporation as general partner and Dominion Capital Incorporated of Richmond, Virginia as financial partner. With the acquisition of Dominion and their effort, project financing was completed. There is also a buyer for the extra energy the plant will generate, Louisiana Power and Light Company, the state's largest public utility. By autumn 1985, an international construction team had been assembled. Engineering would be performed by Fort and Teblata, Brad Lancaster's company of Baton Rouge, Rummel, Klepper, and Cowell of Baltimore, and Sogrea Incorporated of Grenoble, France. Ebasco Services Incorporated, one of the world's largest construction companies, is named prime contractor. Avondale Industries of New Orleans will build the giant prefabricated plant structure, while Assea Brown Boveri of Switzerland will provide generating equipment. The final array of contractors and subcontractors on the project will represent 24 states and 16 foreign countries. The Sidney A.Murray hydroelectric station is a major engineering challenge. It is the world's largest prefabricated floating power plant. But the decision to take this bold approach is dictated by logistical and economic considerations.
Well, you must remember that this site is very remote from civilization, really. The closest pool of skilled labor was at least 90 miles away. We studied a French project where they had used the concept of a prefabricated power plant and had been very successful in it. We actually copied their scheme and figured that by using a shipyard in New Orleans, where skilled labor was readily available, that we would be well ahead of the game. By going to Avondale shipyards, we could take advantage of their 9,000 employees and had an unlimited supply of skilled labor. While we were building the power plant at Avondale, we were also constructing the foundations at the site. By marrying the two, we had a complete power plant. And using this scheme, I'm sure we were able to save a minimum of 25% of the construction time.
Working to specifications developed in Sogrea's hydraulic laboratory, crews at the site excavate a 5,000-foot-long intake channel to carry up to 155,000 cubic feet of water per second from the Mississippi River to the power station's turbines. A 9,000-foot-long outlet channel is dug to carry water from the plant to the old river control overflow channel, leading to the Atchafalaya River system. The inlet and outlet channels form rivers of impressive size themselves, 600 feet wide and 50 feet deep on the intake side, 900 feet wide and 60 feet deep on the outlet side. The massive power plant will be sent on an immense 12-foot thick concrete slab the size of 2 football fields. Site preparation requires shifting existing levees, building new levees along the intake and outlet channels, and relocating more than a mile of highway, incorporating a bridge on top of the power station itself. Meanwhile, at Avondale Industries in New Orleans, work is underway in the power plant. A 25,000-ton steel structure housing 8 hydraulic conduits, which will channel the flow of water past the station's 8 turbines, which power the generators. The huge plant is constructed in units of 50 to 100 tons each, with their electrical equipment already in place. The units are then assembled to form the completed structure. This building method, developed in Japan, is both faster and less expensive than conventional systems. In April 1989, the power plant is formally christened.
That's Sidney Murray.
It's named Merrimack, after the Merrimack Corporation, parent company of Catalyst Energy, and a managing partner in the hydroelectric project. Later, the massive power plant is floated free of its dry dock at Avondale for the 215-mile journey up the Mississippi to the site. It is the largest object ever placed under tow on the river, 456 feet long, 144 feet wide, and towering 12 stories above the waterline. It is so tall, in fact, that it must be partially submerged in order to clear bridges designed to accommodate giant ocean-going ships. integrity and stability of the huge floating power station received a severe and unscheduled test on the trip upriver. As it was being partially submerged to pass under a bridge at Baton Rouge, it was struck by a tornado. The power station comes through the encounter with one of nature's mightiest forces, undamaged. 4 days after leaving New Orleans, the prefabricated power plant arrives at the site. It is towed through a cut in the levee and maneuvered into place over the foundation slab. Once it is precisely aligned, the huge structure settles gently into place. The levee is resealed and all the water is pumped out of the site, while 220,000 tons of super plasticized concrete is pumped into the enclosed spaces of the structure to help anchor it permanently. With the plant in place, the job of installing the remaining equipment is completed. The main components to be installed are the turbines and generators. The 8 generating units, built by ASEA Brown Boveri in Sweden, are each 28 feet across, the largest such units ever built. The bulb turbines by Kverner Hydropower of Sweden feature an automatic control system for the variable pitch turbine blades to respond to changes in demand, head, and flow. Bulb-type generators were chosen because of their well-established reputation for reliability in European power plants, and for their efficiency in situations in which the water level differential is relatively slight, as it is in Vidalia. A 40-mile transmission line is constructed, and connections are made with shore-based utilities. And final tests are run to assure that the Sidney A.Murray hydroelectric station is ready to go online. Finally, it comes down to the day of formal dedication in August 1990. The people of Vidalia and a host of visitors turn out to acknowledge the power of an idea and the effort it took to turn a dream into reality. They come to dedicate the largest prefabricated power plant in the world and the first hydroelectric plant in Louisiana, which is about to take up the task of harnessing a small portion of one of the world's great rivers to light the homes and lighten the tasks of the people of Vidalia and the customers of Louisiana Power and Light. A safe, clean, endlessly renewable source of power for generations yet unborn is about to be tapped. Like all such dedications, it marks both an end and a beginning.
Ceremony for the Sidney A.Murray Hydroelectric Station. I want to thank all of you for joining us here on this very special occasion for us.
When Dominion Capital in 1987 joined Catalyst Energy in sponsoring the facility that we're commissioning today, we knew that it would qualify for a number of major superlatives. It was the largest hydro project to be undertaken in this country in many years, and it was the biggest of its kind in the world. It also represented major engineering and construction challenges for all the companies involved.
I was told by a reliable source this morning that about 13 years ago, Mr. Murray appeared in the Corps of Engineer office and told us about this idea that he had and this vision that he had for a hydroelectric plant. And I'm also told that the people in the Corps at that particular time thought perhaps, Mr. Murray, that you were a little bit crazy in what you were about to pursue. We in the Corps of Engineers salute you and all of the other partners in your project. You've done a magnificent job. You've got a project which you, your community, and the nation could be very proud of. And we in the Corps of Engineers wish you and the project and your partners much success.
We feel like really our role here today is, we would like for it to be anyway, to represent all the people who have in any way participated in building this magnificent project here. At last count, I think we had 16 foreign countries and 24 states. I would say keep going and don't give up. You keep dreaming your dreams and hoping your hope, because who knows, someday yours may come true too. Thank you all, and God bless you. It's taken probably over 3,000 people to do this project. And not only that, it's taken over $500 million to do this project. And I'm not, you know, this is no one-man show. To do this, it's taken all these people and all this effort and time. I'm a little humbled by that, maybe, but, you know, it's been a task and it's something I've enjoyed. But I think uppermost in my mind now would be seeing the goal that I envisioned back when I started. That is a long-term stabilization of energy rates for Vidalia ratepayer. That's what I was trying to do, and I see this project as accomplishing that goal.
The power of an idea, as Thomas Edison so clearly saw, is the power of persistence, of unrelenting pursuit of a dream. It isn't the flash of inspiration that lights Vidalia. It is 15 years of faith in an idea and the hard work of more than 140,000 people from all across the world. And that is something worth reflecting upon, here at the river's edge, where darkness has given way to light.